Welcome to Surviving Wokeland with Ethan Quinn, a channel dedicated to exposing and explaining the ideology driving wokeness. Today, we're delving into how children and parents are being indoctrinated into gender theory through a technique known as love bombing. Specifically, we'll explore how this technique is harnessed to introduce children to gender ideology and persuade parents that affirmative care for gender dysphoria is their sole choice. Let's jump right in. First, let's dive into the concept of love bombing. Love bombing is a psychological manipulation technique wherein an individual or group inundates a person with excessive affection, attention, and affirmation to gain their trust and emotional compliance.
He, theys, and she, theys are welcome here. I'm a they, them, and I love you. Anyone who can talk more about how wild and wonderful and vibrant our gender is, the better. Please, please know that we need you. We love that you're here. He, theys, and she, theys are the best.
Love bombing is a setup that plays upon early wounds, early yearnings, and early triggers, and makes people vulnerable to falling for someone who is often evocative of early, unhealthy relationships.
You're in my family now. I love you very much. I'm the matriarch of this family and this channel. And I love you very much. You are most welcome here. I'm grateful for you.
Religious cults often exploit love bombing as a psychological manipulation tactic to exert control over individuals.
Love bomb, that is what religious cults do. Love bomb is the phrase they actually use, I think.
This entails showering new members with an abundance of attention, affection, and a sense of belonging, fostering a strong emotional bond and a feeling of acceptance within the group.
I love you. And here's a reminder, you're not hacking your way through your childhood trauma all by yourself. Stop that mentality. There are people who love you. There's a community here to work with you, to support you. You belong.
This initial wave of positivity and connection can render individuals more susceptible to the group's ideologies and leadership, as they become emotionally invested and feel obligated to reciprocate the affection they've received.
Grooming is really a process of preparing someone for abuse. It involves establishing trust, playing upon a person's vulnerabilities, and getting then a person into a psychological position where you can more easily prey on them. We hear of this term being used, for example, in all kinds of predatory circles, people who prey on children and on teens, because just by dint of being a child, that renders them vulnerable.
Over time, this manipulation can lead individuals to relinquish their critical thinking, personal boundaries, and autonomy, effectively assimilating them into the cult's belief system and control structure. Wokeness operates much like a cult, hiding its true intentions behind the facade of kindness, inclusivity, and terms like social justice. But in reality, this is merely love bombing. Wokeness tells people what they want to hear, and draws them in with promises of understanding.
It's late. You're a seeker. You're always looking for something. It's going to be a life of being slightly off and slightly discontent, because you know that the world can be better. These are not bad things. This is something fundamentally beautiful about you. It's okay to have sleepless nights because you are that wanderer, warrior, seeker. Just please take good care and be kind to your very gentle heart.
Love bombing within the realm of wokeness is particularly impactful on children, who are more susceptible to influence and lack the cognitive skills to critically evaluate information.
What
Yes.
I am saying is that what we are now doing is that teaching preschoolers, 3-year-olds, that they may have been born in the wrong body and that that's perfectly normal, and that if they, and that if they wish to live as the opposite sex and they wish they would rather be boys or they like, you know, you get to pick, and whatever you pick, we're going with it. All the adults are going. I mean, you know, this is just, you know, it's just appalling. It's astonishing. It's I don't know that I have the right words to express how destructive this is and destabilizing to a little child to introduce in their minds the idea that they may be in the wrong body. That is destabilizing. That is destructive. We don't want any child to feel disembodied, to feel like something's wrong about how they were made. This is destabilizing. This is awful.
Advocates of gender theory, whether in schools, media, or online spaces, employ this technique to forge an emotional bond with children and indoctrinate them into gender ideology.
Hi, beautiful. If you do not have a family that loves you, I'm going to be your family. I am so glad you're here. It is my great honor that you're with me today. I love you so much. Do you know what I love about you? You care so much. You care about justice and fairness and the world. Your sensitivity is so beautiful. I actually think it's the best thing about you. You know what you deserve? Unconditional love, kindness, respect. I see the real you, and I'm so glad you're here.
Influencers on platforms like TikTok often employ love-bombing manipulation, deceiving children into embracing gender ideology. Similar to cult leaders and predatory groomers, woke influencers exploit the manipulation of claiming sole understanding of their victims, showering them with love, and offering an exclusive solution.
I really do love you. I'm not playing a character here. I think it's really lovely if someone's like, you know, they're doing a skit and they're a librarian and they love you and give you a safe space. I'm not playing a character. I'm 100% for real. And I love you very much. And you are safe here with me.
For those grappling with social acceptance, personal struggles, or psychological issues, falling into the trap of a love bomber becomes all too easy, blinding them to manipulation. Over time, this manipulation results in children relinquishing their critical thinking, personal boundaries, and autonomy, effectively assimilating them into the woke cult's belief system. While love bombing draws children into gender ideology, it also ensnares parents into embracing so-called affirmative care for their children, rather than providing proper psychological support.
And most recently, I've been seeing kids who express some distress over being boys or girls and their parents. Now, I have done a lot of research into this field of, let's call it gender ideology, or in my book, I call it a belief system. And I have concluded that it is a utterly unscientific, without medical basis, system of beliefs that is being thrust on us, foisted on us by a movement, a social, political movement, turbocharged movement. And the victims here primarily are the children and their families.
Parents are deceived into thinking that affirmative care is the sole option available to them, and that not endorsing their children's gender dysphoria endangers their lives.
It's just unbelievable what's going on. The resistance on the left to fight any shred of evidence that their theories and their beliefs about how to treat these kids is wrong.
Let's try to stay focused on one false claim at a time if we can, because we might get bogged down.
Okay.
So you actually started by saying that blocking puberty, which is chemical castration of a child,
Just one example, yeah.
yeah, is life-saving.
It can be.
How do you know?
Because there are children who have been suicidal that have had these interventions made.
What children? How do you know? And how many children have had that done
Me personally,
and then
I
are still
haven't met
suicidal?
children. Me personally, I haven't met enough trans children to answer that question.
Okay.
But I know
You are
that the
making-
research exists.
You're making this statement, you're stating it as a fact in front of all these people. There must be a reason, there must be something that you encountered that led you to this rather radical conclusion that to save a child's life, you have to chemically castrate him.
Not every child. No, sir.
Okay, well that is what you just said. The drugs we give to kids for puberty blockers, so-called puberty blockers, originally are cancer drugs used to treat prostate cancer. They're also used to chemically castrate sex offenders and child rapists. Now we give them to physically healthy kids. You're saying that we need to do that or they will die.
And the thing that these people use more than anything else is the emotional blackmail of telling you that if you don't get with the program, your child will kill themselves.
Now that is appalling because, well, put it another way, the evidence for that had better be damn good, otherwise it is the most appalling blackmail. How good is the evidence? I mean, the evidence that it does lead to suicide.
It doesn't. So the important thing to understand is that the reason they say suicide, it's not just that it's emotional blackmail, it's that they're suggesting that you put your child on a pathway that leads to sterility. Because if you put a child on puberty blockers early in puberty, and then you put them on cross-sex hormones, at some point, we don't know exactly when, but maybe at 20 or 21, you've missed your opportunity. Your own sex organs are not going to grow. You are not going to be a person who can conceive or impregnate somebody else. So they're sterilising children, and the only reason you would ever do that is to save a child's life.
So it has to be...
Yeah, it has to be death. It has to be death or sterility.
Yes.
So that's why suicide...
True. Dr. McNamara claims that social and medical interventions are the only evidence-based treatment and that scientific evidence shows it is life-saving. Without it, she's warning us, kids will commit suicide. Well, a growing number of countries have effectively banned the care to which she's referring. And thank God there's been no wave of suicides or other mental health catastrophes.
Now, there are not a lot of children committing suicide, thankfully. It's very, very rare in minors to commit suicide. So that's the first bit of evidence that this is not true. There's an enormous boom in trans identification. There has been no concomitant boom in suicide, again, thankfully. But there have actually been a few papers that have looked at children who are on the waiting list for gender clinics. And what they have found is that these children, they do have a lot of mental comorbidities, mental health comorbidities. So you are seeing higher rates of depression, anxiety, eating disorders.
That's there anyway, and they're
Yes.
depressed anyway, or
Yes.
or bulimic, or
Well,
something like that.
they say that, of course, that it's the stress, the minority stress that's causing these things, but there's no evidence that that's true.
And most of them also have a lot of, at least one or multiple, pre-existing psychiatric problems. So by that I mean a lot of them are on the autism spectrum. They have anxiety disorders. They have social phobia, depression. They may have self-injury. They may be cutting themselves. They may have undergone or gone through some trauma in their life.
This perpetuates a self-reinforcing cycle where children are manipulated into gender dysphoria and then trapped within it due to constant reinforcement from parents, schools, and even medical professionals. Breaking this cycle entails exposing the reality behind woke love bombing, voicing dissent, and ensuring that we safeguard our freedom to speak the truth, while offering children alternative to the hollow kindness of wokeness.
Finland's gender expert, Dr. Rita Kaltiela, said, quote, "It's purposeful disinformation, the spreading of which is irresponsible." All 7 countries, and Florida too, of course, concluded that kids don't need their development interrupted, the girls don't need their periods stopped and their voices lowered, and the boys don't need to grow breasts. What they need is psychotherapy.
That's a wrap for today's video. If you found this exploration of wokeness, love bombing, and gender theory enlightening, please share this video. If you have thoughts or experiences to share, kindly leave a comment below. You can also support this channel by downloading my book, Ministry of Truth: How Propaganda Fuels the Culture War. And please join me every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday as we learn how to survive Wokeland together. Until then, this is Ethan Quinn saying, stay free.